I'm Shane Wiegand with New Mexico Pack Burros, and on today's video we're going to saddle this pack burro right here and show you a few tips and tricks that I've learned to help keep your saddle from rolling, your pack pad from moving around, and make sure you're safe to go down the trail. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously brush your animal down, pick the hooves. Today it's super muddy, and we're just going to do a little tutorial here in the yard. So her hooves are good as they are right now, and she's all brushed off, ready to go. So I use a couple of different pads. This one I like a lot. It's Diamond Wool brand. It's obviously wool, and I like to use it because it's got a little more side coverage for the burro. It actually hangs really low down on their sides, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I'd like to get one that's a little bit shorter, cut a couple inches off of it, but it's what I'm using for right now. So it's got good coverage for their sides when the panniers are riding down the trail, and in late season packing, so October, November, if it ends up snowing or whatever, I think it provides a little extra warmth for them and protection. When you're putting a pack pad on, most pads you're going to find are horse size. There's a few folks out there, Mountain Ridge Gear, and some others, and you can get pony pads and stuff too that make a burro sized pad. But this is just normal, I think 30 by 30 or 32 by 32 pack pad. And so I put it right about in line with the shoulder here. You can see this line coming straight down from her leg. That's usually about how far up I do it. And just make sure it's centered. Next up is the pack saddle. I have a burro saddle here from Mountain Ridge Gear. I believe it's a 18-inch bar. It fits the burros really well. He's got some great videos on pack saddle fit, so I'll skip that for today. And if you're interested in pack saddle fit, go ahead and watch the Mountain Ridge Gear videos, and you can learn that. So we'll throw it on. So when I'm saddling my burro, I've always got the cinches on top here. I just throw them down on the side. Next, I do the chest collar and breeching. This is kind of different than I think a lot of commercial packers do, or horse and mule people. A lot of times you'll want to do the front cinch here first. That way, in case if there's any sort of issue that happens, that the saddle's connected to the animal. My burros are broke in general, so I don't get too worried about that part. And since I fitted this saddle to her before, I know that I've got a little bit of loose here. Back behind her, I've got about a hand length on her rump. Hand length being right behind her leg, just making sure it's loose, it's not super tight. So I know that the pack saddle's pretty well centered. Next, I'll do my front cinch. Do it up pretty snug. So as far as distance, you don't want it right behind their leg, because then it can start to ride up on their leg and cause issues. See if we can get her to move her foot forward a little bit. So it's at a little bit of an angle. It's not right up in her armpit per se. Give it a couple of good jerks. Then I don't do it tight right up yet. So for the rear cinch, here's a burro pro tip. If I place this rear cinch a pretty decent ways back, you've got the curve of the stomach right here, the curve of her underside, and I place it well behind that curve. If you've got a male, You've got his sheath coming down right here. You don't want to place it on that. Definitely don't do that. Put about a, you know, call it a hand width in front of the sheath. And then, so then you're, on the female, you're just looking about the same place. And another thing to remember with this rear cinch is to make sure your, I believe it's your latigo on the other side, so this piece right here on the other side is at an angle like this is. It's real easy to put this one at an angle, but on the back side, it's still straight up and down. So what that does is your cinch is actually diagonal and it's gonna end up riding forward. So make sure this is at an angle because it needs to be at an angle to get this cinch that far back. Check your other side, adjust that, and then get it snug. One of the problems I used to have when I first started out was this pack pad moving around quite a bit. And I think it could have been because quite a few reasons, but I think it's because my rear cinch was too loose. So when I cinch them up, I think squished potato. It'll loosen up a lot when you're going down the trail. And at the end of this video, we'll go on a little walk, then come back and we can see how everything's loosened up. But make sure it's snug. So a couple of good jerks on there. And I'll leave that like there for now and I'll finish it here in a minute. For this next part, we're gonna load the panniers up and put a manty on the load and then do a box hitch around it. So after she sat for a little bit, maybe I went through and weighed my panniers, packed my panniers. Both panniers are about the same weight, within a couple of 1 or 2 pounds, not more than 2 pounds. Because if they're a different weight, you're gonna end up with the saddle potentially rolling and it's just gonna be uncomfortable for your animal. So within a pound, 2 pounds max. So we'll tighten up these cinches. She sat for a little while now. They're still pretty tight. You can go ahead and tie them off here. So in these panniers right now, I've got a couple of bags of firewood pellets or pellet stove pellets to add some weight. I've got a horse blanket in each one of these to add some bulk, just for training purposes. So if you're training, use whatever you got laying around the house. So right now she's got about 80 pounds plus tack on her. That's usually about max that I want to hike around with. I've done heavier, but just for short distances and because we had to. After you load your panniers, take a look from the back. Make sure everything is level. A lot of times you have bulky stuff in the top of these panniers. So these tops are different heights. So I always look at the bottoms. This one could probably come up for a little bit. I could probably tighten the straps just a little bit more, but I'm gonna leave it like there. I think it'll ride pretty well. Make sure if you got baling twine or some sort of breakaway, if you're trailing more than one burro and you tie them together, never hard tie them. I always tie them to something breakable. Make sure the baling twine isn't stuffed under the saddle. I think that's it for that. So I've got 2 different types of lash cinches here. One outfit, Mountain Ridge Gear, offers it in a burro size, which is just a smaller size. I had Trailhead Supply make me, or they made me, I guess. It's kind of a gift. A more traditional style Lash Cinch. And so yeah, 2 different styles here.